What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favalli, joined, as always, by my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. It is peace or panic time, which we're putting a unique spin on a recycled idea, we think, where we're going to go through. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. It'll be a two-part podcast, and we're going to do every team. And sometimes when we're talking about the essence of an entire team to panic, that will be the discussion. But otherwise, we're going to look, even for the really good teams, the really pleasantly surprising teams, identify a trend or something that might be troubling, and then decide whether it's worth panicking or this will just normalize and let's just show peace and patience and process, what have you. Usual housekeeping notes very quickly. Just subscribe if you haven't already. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Follow us on the socials. Links that are in the podcast and YouTube description. Join our Discord, which I we'll include also the link to that in the podcast and YouTube description. And we have merch. The links to those are in the podcast and YouTube description. If you've done all those things and supported us in all of those ways, please consider telling people about us. Spread the word. We love you all and appreciate everybody's support who listens to this. And finally, I'm going to try and keep my talking to a minimal on this one. It's Grant's show because I can't use the word deathly. I am lethally ill at the moment. And so if my energy's not there, if my voice starts to crack, I will pull back and not talk as much. My voice is okay right now, so I can talk. But if Grant, if you notice I start giving you short answers, I'm not mad at you. It's just because I don't want to sound like I'm going through puberty in real time.
Well, I wouldn't want to rob the listeners of that potential for comedy, but I understand. I've definitely, the podcast game is not a great game to be in if you're halfway losing your voice and have to keep speaking for over an hour. So, I sympathize, and I will try to speak. Let's see. Should I talk more to fill the space, or should I talk less so it's not as obvious that you're also talking less?
We probably should have spoken also so that people are like, why are we again listening to an 8-hour podcast from these two jackasses? Like,
just listen to it at like 3x speed, and it won't be 8 hours anymore. Have you listened?
Did they let you go up to 3x speed? I tried to pull back to 1.5. And I'm already up to 1.75 on most. And then the other day I was on 2. And I was like, if only these things went faster. I don't think Apple Podcasts give me the option to go to 3 times speed.
Do you ever worry that if you listen to a lot of podcasts on 2x, for example, like 1.5, I think you can get to the point where you don't really even notice it anymore. And then if you listen to that at regular speed, it sounds weird. But I worry like if I listen to stuff on 2x, which I don't do very much, I'm going to start speaking really fast and everyone's going to think I'm a crazy person because it's just going to penetrate my brain.
Does this explain why I sound like a coked up fiend if you listen to me on 2x? Because I talk so fast since I'm listening to everyone else on. I can't listen. If people listen to me on 2x, kudos to them. I used to get trolled all the time. I think people just have accepted it. I'm not going to slow down. The only one person that I think sounds or speaks I'm not saying I'm the fastest, but have you ever listened to Locked On Jazz with David Locke?
Yes.
He is on 11 or 12. I'm on 11 and he's on 12. And so he talks so fast. Listening to him on 2x, which I have done, by the way. It's just certain podcasts I want to make sure I'm supporting and also listening to all this different content. So I'm like, I need to squeeze this in. But if I want to sit down and enjoy a podcast, I'm like, I'm gonna put it on 1.75. I'm gonna live wild right now. I'm gonna live slow.
Really treat myself.
Yeah. I've gotten to the point where 1.5 on some podcasts sounds really slow though. That's not the problem.
You actually do have a problem if that's where you're at. That doesn't sound slow. It's like I feel like a lot of the time on 2x I'm not even processing what's being said. Like I understand words are being spoken, but it's just I can't catch up to it.
You sound fantastic on 1.5 speed.
Maybe because I speak
like your perfect cadence. Yeah.
So what you're telling, the note you're giving me is Grant talk faster so that
for people on 1x
for normal speed, you sound halfway decent. Got it.
No, I'm saying I'm incoherent on 1.5. So if anyone's listening to me on 2x, you're on 1.5. Because I've listened back to our podcast at points to try and just like, again, there I go. I want to cut out my likes. You sound great on 1.5. If I have to listen to myself on 1.5 or 2, it's too fast.
I don't like listening to myself under any circumstances. So I don't really have a strong opinion on how I sound at various speeds. I do know, as I just did it right now, are you aware of your verbal tics? You don't really have any. I think you have enough reps to where yours are pretty minimal. If I listen to myself, I'm immediately incredibly annoyed by all of my pauses and ums, and like I'll catch myself repeating the same phrase, at minute 5 and then again at minute 40, or and then again like three different times, because it's like, well, it's rattling around my brain. I better just say this dumb thing.
We both do the repeating of phrases, and I call it out sometimes, like for me, podcast, saying this is going to be the phrase of the podcast, apparently. Yeah. I still have the likes, and it's because I edit us so much for the shorts that I'm aware of it, and you have I even said it, I think, once on a solo episode. I'm the like guy, and you're the guy. And so your pauses, though, don't bother me at all. They're very easy to chop up when I'm doing shorts.
It's a favor to you that I can't form a thought without stopping halfway through.
The and the likes get annoying to cut out because they're sometimes in the middle of thoughts. And so when you're like having to separate words with the and the likes, our listeners are super awesome though, because they don't, and viewers, we never get shit for that, really. Mm-hmm. So I very much appreciate everyone just powering through it. They did ask though how much editing we do on full episodes in the mailbag. I think Austin had it. And surprisingly, the full episodes are just like, I'm throwing them up there.
Yeah.
It's the clips and the shorts where I'm putting in real time to edit. So thank you guys.
Thank you. I think leaving mistakes and poor turns of phrase is endearing. That's how I'm going to frame it. We're just regular guys, nobody's perfect. We're just doing the best we can. I see. Now I'm going to think every time I do and I don't know what direction I need to go with the next thing I'm going to say. I'm going to be in my own head so bad on this pod. We shouldn't have done this. We shouldn't have started talking about this.
Before we get to Eastern Conference Peace or Panic, do you want to go through some news since we
sure. I'll start with the Nets here since that's the first item. Ben Simmons, who has not played since November 6th, is set to miss additional time while he battles a nerve irritation in his hip and lower left side. Brian Lewis of New York Post reports. Cam Thomas, still on the Nets, is still out with a sprained ankle. This Ben Simmons thing, not great, considering the ups and downs his back has put him through over the last couple of years, right?
And anytime I'm not even close to a doctor, when I hear nerve,
not great.
Yeah, I'm over. Hornets, Miles Bridges, this is a statement from the Charlotte Hornets. Miles Bridges is eligible to return to our active roster on Friday after serving his NBA suspension. We are comfortable with Miles returning to play based on our current understanding of the facts of the recent allegations and remain in contact with the NBA as that matter proceeds through the court process. For anyone who has forgotten, and I don't know why you would, he served the balance of a 30-game suspension, which was 10 games this year after pleading no contest to a felony domestic violence charge. Another arrest warrant that dates back to January came to light like a few weeks ago, and then another criminal summons was issued for an incident that happened earlier in, I believe it was October. I want to know what information they know that makes them comfortable having this guy on the court, and we can let the due process play out, but it's a cringy ass statement. I don't know what else to say about that.
I don't know what the right words, other than he's not going to play for us, would have been.
I'm sorry. After that second, I want to make it clear. The first one, I would have got. He shouldn't be. These are players. If you believe in redemption, I get it. This is now happening a second time afterwards, and the details of that second summons were harrowing. This guy should not be in the league.
Yeah,
it's just quite frankly.
Yeah. Moving on to less cringy statements. The Chicago Bulls are the next team here. Zach LaVine and the Bulls are open to a trade per Shams Charania. Great. Good job, fellas. We're getting there.
We'll talk. That'll be more about the Bulls, but that's franchise malpractice that it happened 11 games into the season rather than the offseason.
Right,
sorry.
Instead of before, sure. Additionally, 10 plus teams are expected to show interest in Alex Caruso per Mark Stein. DeMar DeRozan remains away from the team due to personal reasons. I forget where I saw it, but there was also some indication that DeRozan would be someone that maybe the Lakers were interested in. I mean, that's been kind of floating around forever. So no news there. The Bulls like tiptoeing around the blow up that should have happened quite a while ago. So,
and they might come up in the Eastern Conference Peace or Panic. I don't know.
It may or may not. Yeah.
Denver Nuggets, they signed head coach Michael Malone to an extension that will make him among the NBA's highest paid coaches. Extremely well-deserved, I would say. Just won a title, and the relationship he's built with his players, even though some of his rotations can get a little stubborn, and he's probably been a little bit better about that this year, just well-deserved. I respect the hell out of the relationship he has with his players, and this is also just, we talk about it all the time, but it's really cool how much leeway or time the Nuggets were given to turn into this. It's not even a title team. They're just a juggernaut. They are a juggernaut.
Yeah. Warriors and Wolves got them lumped together here. Steph Curry is set to miss an undisclosed amount of time with the sprained right knee. It's not considered serious. There was no structural issue showed on the MRI he took, but still, given his age, given how vital he is to the team, anything going wrong with him is, a 5-alarm fire. Draymond Green got suspended 5 games for putting Rudy Gobert in a headlock. That is the longest suspension for on-court conduct I think I saw since then Meta World Peace got 7 games for elbowing James Harden. That's I think 2012 is what I saw.
That shot. Holy crap!
Yeah, man. That was you knew that was going to be an issue right then. But pretty significant suspension for the Adam Silver era, and frankly not unwarranted given the track record. I also like. God, we're gonna take us 10 years to get through this pod if we keep having tangents, but like. I like that Joe Dumars is looking at like past behavior and saying you're just a habitual violator of various rules, and we're going to treat you a little bit more harshly. That's fine. Like that's how the world works.
That whole I don't mean to laugh, but he comes in to break up the fight and just puts Rudy Gobert in a headlock when 2 other dudes are fighting. And I'm sorry, the Warriors broadcast is awful. I'm not breaking any news here. Their spin on that was so disgusting. They had, I think it was Fitz said, no punches were thrown, which is good. Are you fucking kidding me?
And that's just a factual statement. So punches not being thrown is bad. Is that what you're saying? No, I was watching the Wolves broadcast because that's one of the best broadcasts in the league and I love it. And they were surprisingly measured, but we're very clear on he's absolutely needs to be thrown out. There will absolutely be suspensions. They were fairly sober about it. The Warriors one I didn't hear, but I don't need to have heard it to know exactly what the tone was.
And the other thing too is just there was, I think Tom Haberstroh posted something where it's like Draymond Green's suspensions or ejections are disproportionately high in games that Steph Curry.
Oh yeah, well Rudy Gobert called him out. Did you see that quote about how? Basically everybody must know about this. If you're listening to this podcast, I can't imagine that you're not aware of the quotes from Gobert after the game, but it was basically, well, I was thinking beforehand that with Steph out, he's definitely going to get tossed out because he basically doesn't like to play without his guy, or
I love
they
that.
Can't win.
Yeah,
it was definitely. I mean, then the numbers back it up, so that's kind of fun. Additionally, Gobert, speaking of, and Klay Thompson and Jaden McDaniels, who started the whole thing by like playing tug of war with each other's jerseys, were each fined $25,000, no suspensions for any of those 3 guys.
The Clippers, multiple reports have said that they have been relegated to the G League. No, just Daniel Tice is expected to sign with the Clippers after completing a buyout with the Pacers. He gave Indy back a little over $2 million, which not coincidentally is basically the amount that will be offset when he signs with the Clippers.
Yeah. The Lakers announced Thursday that Gabe Vincent, left knee, is progressing in his recovery and will be reevaluated in 2 weeks.
The Memphis Grizzlies have been granted a disabled player exception worth $6.3 million by the NBA for the season-ending loss of Steven Adams. They have until March 11th to use the DPE. They can use it to sign a player for 1 year or acquire someone who only has 1 year left on his contract. However, they currently have 15 players on the standard roster, in addition to also having John Morant on the suspended list. So if they're going to use it, there's going to need to be some roster finagling there. And if you do remember, they used part of the MLE to sign Bismack Biyombo.
The Pelicans announced Monday that Larry Nance Jr. has been diagnosed with a right rib fracture and will be reevaluated in 10 to 14 days. The Pelicans stay snake bit.
Kelly Oubre Jr., I went over this in the solo mailbag when he was hit by a moving vehicle. Ribs, has broken ribs, fractured ribs, has resumed taking part in light work, the Sixers said, and the team has hope that he could return to game action in around 2+ weeks. There's also, I don't know if you saw the TMZ video floating around about him coming. I don't know. I hope him or his agent sent them that tape of his Ring camera. Otherwise, that's scary as hell. And I also that we're just conditioned to doubt people because this is someone who's new to the city and couldn't give the correct look. He clearly had injuries. It was just, and he's also a known like bike enthusiast. And so nothing disaligned with what reality was. That those reactions made me, that was the camera. I don't know who sent it. If it wasn't Kelly Oubre Jr. or his camp to kind of clear up if people thought he was lying, which imagine feeling that you needed to send that because you were, oh, is he lying? That like the line of questioning on it was just like that. Nick Nurse even had to say, oh, we're going to believe our player. Yeah, no shit. I think people deserve benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. And so that whole thing was just,
Yeah, we all got to get rid of our Ring cameras, unless Amazon ever wants to sponsor this podcast, in which case we should all have lots more Ring cameras than we have and put them inside our house. Robert Williams III for the Blazers underwent successful surgery Monday to reconstruct a torn ligament in his right knee after he sustained a patellar dislocation and is expected to make a full recovery ahead of 24-25.
And finally, the Wizards announced on Saturday that DeLon Wright will miss approximately 4 to 6 weeks with a knee injury. I'm actually kind of happy for him that he doesn't have to deal with what's happening on the court anymore in Washington. Eastern Conference peace or panic, Grant. Are you ready? And so the way we split this up is Grant handled the East, and so he'll be driving the bus here. And then I handled the Western Conference. We'll obviously give thoughts and respond. There will be certain teams that we allocate more time to just because of the nature of the peace or panic elements.
Yes.
And I have anything else to add to that?
Not really. This is a good example here. We'll just go alphabetically, and it'll be, I'm confident we're going to get the alphabet correct this time. So an issue here, as I'm sure many are aware, a lot of things have looked pretty good for the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young is not shooting the ball well at all. And some of these stats may be like a day. Actually, I don't think so, because we're recording this Thursday night and the Hawks aren't playing tonight, for example. So it's a pretty light slate. So Trae Young is, I'm trying to find the stats that I had in the article here, basically, but essentially he's on pace to post the worst shooting numbers from 2 from 3. He's under 30% from 3. I think he's pretty comfortably under 40% from 2. And this is all weird, right? Because Quinn Snyder is going to get him moving off the ball more, which sort of has happened, but it's also true that the Hawks are throwing 25 more passes per game than they did last year. They're way more efficient on cuts. So like some of the Snyder stuff is definitely happening, right? And the offense itself has been good, but that is in spite of Trae Young really just not shooting the ball well at all. How concerned are we about this, Dan? Is this something that, Trae Young has a very specific playing style that he's kind of been able to utilize over all of his NBA career? Very ball dominant, very pick and roll heavy, doesn't have to do much when he doesn't have the ball. That's all changed now. I guess if you're panicking, that's something you might point to as he's not adjusting well to a different role, or is this just noise and we don't need to worry about it?
Oh, I would say it's peace, a cap lock piece here, because, okay, maybe he's not comfortable firing more shots up off the catch, which he has done this year from 3. And it's still such a small part of his game. Maybe his pull-up jumper, there's pullback. He's shooting 24% on pull-up threes. The big thing for me is just, okay, he's shooting, most of his 3-pointers, by the way, have been open or wide open. And so
he's getting more wide open threes this year than last.
Yeah. 14 of 51 on open and wide open threes. That's not, he's going to hit his open and wide. If he keeps getting those looks, he's not shooting 27.5% on open and wide open threes for the rest of the year. And I'll point out very quickly, defenses still just overreact to him. And so he's able to get to the foul line and kind of offset a lot of the efficiency woes that he's dealing with from the field.
All right. Kind of another niche one here, moving to the Boston Celtics. So they are, I guess you would say that the problem Boston has had historically, or at least in this iteration of the team, is the offense stagnates at the worst possible times. It has arguably cost them a title. It definitely has contributed to their, they've had playoff success in that they always make the playoffs. They tend to advance pretty deep most years. But when things go sideways for Boston, it's that the offense stagnates. They can't generate good shots, and so on and so forth. We've seen it several times. And that's still kind of the case this year. And the thing I pointed to that, caught my attention at least is they're 21st in assist percentage. And like the whole, you need a bunch of passes per game or you need a high assist rate to be a good offense. That's not necessarily true, but it is striking to me that Boston is 21st in assist percentage after being 5th last year. So and the fact that you're essentially playing 2 point guards because you have Drew Holiday and you have Derek White out there together. I think having Porzingis playing more, I guess, in Robert Williams' spot is, I don't know, maybe a wash because Williams could pass it. I think that was kind of an underappreciated skill of his. So I guess like the bottom line is the Celtics offense is still really good. It's, top 5 in efficiency. That there's nothing that looks to me like this is a team that's, oh my God, these offensive issues are going to get in the way of them winning a title, except like the problems that they've had are still kind of there. So I don't know. Panic would be strong, but I'm curious what your take is on the Celtics offense. And are we making too much out of the fact that like the personnel has very much changed, but the one kind of little issue that we worry about with them is still present?
Yeah, it's still a piece for me. I might be more I think when you combine it, it'd be closer to maybe that's something in between. Sort of what would be in between peace or panic on the scale?
Patience.
Well, that's like peace, basically. Like this awkward discomfort or something. Because they're also not getting to the rim at like it's almost half their shots are coming from three. It's 45% or outrageous. And then you look at their shot frequency everywhere else, and they're just in the bottom 10 or worse because they're so reliant on the three, which is fine relative to their personnel. But now when you're talking about the playmaking passing deficit on top of, a rim frequency deficit, and they're 17th, I believe, in foul attempt rate right now, that is something where it's, okay, could these forces in the playoffs combine to form more of a major issue? Is that fair to say? Which is why I would land somewhere. I'm going to skew towards peace, but somewhere in between when we're looking specifically at the postseason where, okay, could this do anything to derail them? I think it's good. I don't remember what they ranked in turnover rate last year, but they're in the top 5 of turnover rate this year. They were top 7 last year as well, too, apparently, as I look at it. They're so good, and I missed on them already with my concerns that I can't reasonably go panic here.
That's right. You were a little more.
It was mostly you were pre-Drew Holiday trade, though.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that changed a lot of things. All right,
where are you on it?
On how good the Celtics were going to be?
No, I meant like peace or panic here. Where did you land on the spectrum?
I mean, it can't be panic because the baseline numbers are all still so good, and just when you watch this team play, it's those 6 guys are just. I mean, and like. They beat the Sixers without Jaylen Brown and without Porzingis, and the Sixers played well for stretches. So I can't. It would be hard for me to think of the thing that's happening with Boston that would cause me to panic. But like the reason I focused on this is this is the issue, and I don't know like what the root cause. And maybe it's just the way that Tatum plays. Like he loves to just find ways to get jumpers when things are going bad instead of I don't know, moving the ball for open shots or getting to the basket. I'm not panicking. It's just, I want to flag it, and it's something I'm going to monitor just to see if these stagnant episodes like persist.
Peace, panic, or percolating. So we're kind of in the percolating.
Percolating. Yeah. Percolating. Just, let's go with that. All right. The Brooklyn Nets are next up. So I don't know where you were on Brooklyn coming into the season or even late last year. I just thought this team had the chance to be just a dynamite, like such a good defense, and maybe they'll get there, and that's why we're doing peace or panic here. But some of the numbers that like blew my mind, a team with, and granted there have been injuries, but you've got Claxton, you've got Bridges, you've got Finney-Smith, you got Royce O'Neal, Cam Johnson, Ben Simmons, a lot of length. Dennis Smith Jr. is on this team. He's in the league because he can defend. They are 29th in steals per game, and I think either 29th or dead last in opponent turnover rate. That seems impossible to me because this is an entire team of just long arms. That's all this is just, 7-foot wingspans all over the floor, and they're not making other teams uncomfortable. And the other thing that really like has a negative effect on is what is otherwise a very good transition offense. So the Nets are, because of all these long athletic guys, that when they get out on the break, the results are good, but they don't get out on the break as often as they, ought to. And so they're just leaving low-hanging fruit unpicked, I think was the phrase I want to use here. If you can generate steals, which they should be able to, force turnovers, which they should be able to, you can prop up your offense, which otherwise isn't great, as long as Cam Thomas isn't hitting like contested, double turnaround, 360 degrees, spinning 18-footers. You got to run a little bit. They can't do it. So peace or panic on the Nets inexplicably not being an awesome defense. I think they're 21st overall, but the turnover forcing stuff is the failure to force turnovers and make offenses panic, to use the word of the day, is troubling to me.
I think you kind of have to go with closer to panic than peace, even if you don't want to take a definitive stance here. As you said, there's been injuries. Claxton missed a bunch of time. We already mentioned that Ben Simmons is going to be out for a minute. You look at their top end lineup, which has been used this season, of Ben Simmons, Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, and Dorian Finney-Smith. That one speaks to, look how much time Claxton missed. They have a 101 defensive rating.
Yeah.
So there's the top end talent is there, but I think you have to ask yourself, are they going to all be available enough together to actualize what is going to be the best version of this defense? And the fact that I think they're one of the teams that have gotten a little bit fortunate on opponent 3-point shooting. Opponents are hitting, 34% of their threes against Brooklyn. And so maybe that's not ridiculously low, but that's something that could come up. And I'm not too worried about what's been happening at the rim. I know that they're not particularly big or strong, but having Claxton back, I think it was Matt Moore was on the Locked On NBA podcast, or it said something about where he doesn't, he thinks that Claxton's better as a switcher and he's not really a good rim protector. I just really respectfully disagree. And I don't, if I'm taking what he said out of context, I think he can be not even just as a helper. He can be a good straight up rim protector. Having him back will help, but I would just be, okay, this Ben Simmons stuff, you're now dealing with the Claxton injury. I'm just sort of like, and some of the lines that you have to cobble together to make sure, well, these two, we don't know if they can play together. We need to make sure there's enough offense on the floor. I'm going to just go to a little bit more towards panic, especially if you're standard. I'm assuming you're on panic if you thought they were going to be like a top 5 or 7 defense.
Yeah. I mean, it's as much. That's really what it is. It's just the way they've played so far deviates so much from expectations that I kind of am thrown for a loop and am closer to panic than peace for sure. They are, since I put these stats together, they are running more still, but their transition efficiency is just like off the charts, absurdly good. So they should be like the number 1 transition frequency team, and they're just not. Okay. Charlotte Hornets. This is a simple one. Too many fouls. So they are, let's see, last in the league in scoring efficiency a year ago. They're 10th in points per 100 possessions. So the offense is going fine. They're 28th in opponent free throw rate. A lot of this is Nick Richards, who's averaging over 6 fouls per 36. That's not good. That's like Mitchell Robinson a couple years ago territory. You don't want that. Brandon Miller's hurt, but he was over 4 fouls per 36. LaMelo's over 4 per 36. This is a minor niche point, but like, I just don't see this getting better because of the personnel on this team. It is weird though, because Steve Clifford teams tend to not do this. So it is also, in addition to like not a real problem, it's very out of character. So that's just a small one for Charlotte here. But yeah, if you're not going to be a great defense, you also just can't foul all the time, because then there's just no hope. And it doesn't matter how good your offense is. You're not going to be a play-in team, which is a low bar. But if you're putting teams on the line all the time and your defensive structure just doesn't, because of the personnel, just isn't great, it's cause for some panic for me. Like, with the understanding that what we're panicking about is not Charlotte. Like, oh, Charlotte's not going to win 50 games now. It's like, well, now they might not be a play-in team.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know how that's going to get better necessarily with their personnel. I think that's, is it something to panic over? I mean, when you have the worst defense in the league and Steve Clifford's your head coach, I know opponents are shooting like 40% from 3 against them. That's probably just something outright to panic about. I don't know how much, turnovers could be contributing to a little bit, but they're like middle of the road there as well. I think you have to go towards panic here. And a lot of that is just, honestly, one of the most impressive defensive players for them this year has been Brandon Miller. Been really good on that end. But as you mentioned, when you're dealing with a lot of younger, and then also I don't really want to talk about him, like Miles Bridges coming back into the fold. What does his timing and shape look like? I don't think that's going to necessarily help this. I was curious though, this is a separate issue, where you landed on just, are you at all concerned that, LaMelo Ball's efficiency at the basket has not been great? Or does it matter more that, which is, by the way, it's never been great, or does it matter more that, LaMelo Ball is just attacking more?
I think I'd probably I'd view the aggression as a positive, but I just don't think he's ever going to be someone that finishes at like, I don't know what above average for his.
You think he'll ever finish at 60% at the rim? Because he's at his career, he's actually, so it's been, he's pretty consistent. Rookie year, 53% at the rim. 54% as a sophomore, 54% in his third year, and 55% this year, which would be a career high.
No, I mean, I want to look at these numbers to see what the percentile ranks are for him.
Oh, it's 40. He's in the 42nd percentile, so it's not terrible. But I'm just looking at, I value the volume as you do. I'm just very curious as to, I was honestly shocked you didn't go with that, but I guess his percentage probably ticked up a little bit over the past few games. I think I think I like the idea that he's attacking more in general, but I was kind of sold on this idea that, oh, he would be someone who could be a really good finisher at the basket based off the angles he can use and how smart he is. And I'm starting to question that.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a broader set of concerns about him. I think Zach Lowe wrote a lot about it, about how just the way he operates in the pick and roll, because I think partly because of the lack of a threat as a finisher that he is, he is, prior to this year anyway, wasn't, getting, like, he wouldn't put the defender on his back and pin him there and then go try to score. He would kind of turn the corner and get off the ball a beat too early and just not stress the defense like you want someone in that position to do, taking another dribble, threatening to score before drawing a defender and moving it. He just has some, like, he's obviously, his vision's ridiculous. He can throw every pass in the book. He, can read the floor really quickly. But I think it's sort of the weirdness of how he operates in the pick and roll, while not ineffective, I think is still sort of tied to, like, he's just not, he doesn't he doesn't spring off the floor. He's big for his position and he's long, but like he has to try to convert these difficult, like, running floaters and, like, little push shots and flips that are just, like, I don't know, a couple feet farther away than you want those types of shots to be taken from. So he's got a weird finishing package. And so I agree. I don't know if you said this, he's in the 90th percentile at his position in rim attempt frequency, which is like,
yeah, it's like 35% of his shots or something are coming from there. That's
exactly.
Great.
Which is great. And that comes in conjunction with, like, his longer mid-range shots are just, those are out of his diet now. He just doesn't shoot those anymore. So, like, from a process perspective, that's great. I just don't know if he has the tools. If he does become a really good finisher near the basket, it'll be like, it's not going to look like other good finishers near the basket look. It'll just be, he gets really good at the types of shots that, are hard to make. Like, he'll make a bunch of Jokic, awkward floaters and just become good at that. Let's see, where do we have next to go?
Alphabet in Chicago.
Here we go. I don't know. I mean, should we just say, like, the whole thing is worth panicking over?
Is it? Yeah. I mean, it's peace or panic in Chicago. Is it? Would it be to frame it this way? Are you at peace that it seems like they might be ready to blow it up? Or is it panic mode that why did they let it get to this point where they didn't do this over the offseason? Because you can say, well, Zach LaVine, they shopped him over the summer and he wasn't going to get a lot. What makes you think he's going to get more now that you've waited for James Harden, Damian Lillard, and Drew Holiday all to be relocated? And I'm at, I mean, it's a panic, I think, because of what it says about the overarching picture of the Bulls, that it took, the report comes out 11 games into the season. That's not, if you're a team if you have a team you actually believe in, or you're not fooling yourself into, or you know what you're doing, you need more than 11 games to make this a decision. The fact that it came to a head so soon in the season proves to me that the process behind the scenes is horrid.
I just don't, I wish, wouldn't you like to know if what the front office or even like Billy Donovan, I'm sure it's different with a coach. Cause, like, yeah, I believe in these guys. We're going to, just try to get better every day, blah, blah, blah. But, like, what did the front office think was going to be meaningfully different this year? Or what were their realistic expectations? I would love to know. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall, when they've had the real, what's the state of the team kind of conversations at a high level, because, like, there was no reason to believe. I mean, maybe you thought we wouldn't have a players kick the coach out of the locker room after game one. I'm going to never stop bringing that up because that's so nuts to me. But, like, just for, I just thought this team could win 42 games or something like that. Like, that's a pretty, not best case, but that's, on the high side of the outcome spectrum for them. And that hasn't happened. And now it's pretty clear things are stale. Guys seem to like playing with each other. They're still just, I just don't understand what the expectation was. So this is all I'm agreeing with you. Like, this is panic because all of the issues that have arisen were either already there and understood or eminently foreseeable. So I don't know. The little niche thing I had was DeMar DeRozan is now not making mid-range jumpers, which is just like a sign of imminent catastrophe, because that's the one thing you could always count on. But yeah, just across the board, the Bulls are very panic worthy.
Is there, if we're going through their players, that I think they wind up keeping Patrick Williams, just because I don't know what you could get for him now, and you might as well see it through. I know that they demoted him, but he had, what game was I watching from them where it was? I tweeted, I was just like, I can't quit Patrick Williams because he makes these defensive plays. He'll hit the threes. Right. I think he winds up staying. I think the names are Caruso, DeRozan, and LaVine, and Vooch would be sort of a sneaky short-term acquisition for a team that, I mean, Memphis, depending on what salary matching, to like have Vooch in there while Steven Adams is out, that could be something they look at. But now you have to deal with, he's under contract now for the next few years, and so it might be harder to move him. The three players I'm looking at the most, I mean, honestly, if I'm being I want to see Ayo Dosunmu somewhere else, but maybe if he stays, he'll get even more of a shot. But even Javon Carter could interest teams. There are just any destinations, player fits that you particularly like.
Yeah, I'm just kind of fascinated by the LaVine piece of it. I think all those guys you mentioned everybody should be, there'll be a bunch of December 15th like caveats on there because of so many guys that had signed this past offseason and can't move until then. But the LaVine thing, I'm sure you've had to come up with fake LaVine trades at some point this year, and I have too. And it's the Sixers always, get brought up, and like I don't think anybody loves that fit, but it's just like I'll send him there because he's probably the best.
Bring Alex Caruso to Philly instead.
I mean, Alex Caruso fits anywhere. He's kind of I was thinking the other day, this is a tangent. We need to come up with a category of player that's just like this guy fits anywhere. And Alex Caruso is definitely on that list. Contavious Caldwell-Pope. And then there's somebody else who I can't remember who it was that was.
We called him infinitely scalable.
Infinitely scalable. Yeah, that's a Danism, the infinitely scalable. Where, if you could send LaVine like the best, forget the return packages, forget how, if they want him, like where does Zach LaVine make the most sense? Do you have is there a team that jumps to mind?
There were a couple. One, Minnesota Timberwolves fans got mad at me because I said this doesn't make sense for the Bulls, but Towns for Zach LaVine would be an interesting challenge trade. Towns has been, I was talking about this in the Discord with someone where they said Towns has been good defensively all season. At the beginning, just a lot of the off-ball stuff, he's actually been good defensively from what I've seen, like a lot more lately. And so if you're the Wolves, maybe you wouldn't make that trade. I think it's Orlando.
I hate that. I think it's Orlando too. I think so too.
No, first of all, you try to send every single guard who can make a jumper to Orlando.
That you're 100% correct. That's right. Although Jalen Suggs has been better. I'm ready. I'm maybe ready to walk back my Jalen Suggs.
The Magic have the equity to where it's, if you don't want to give up I think you probably have to give up Anthony Black, which I wouldn't, or Jalen Suggs in a LaVine trade. But theoretically, if you didn't want to, and you just did money and all picks, you don't need to give up Suggs or Black. You're definitely not, Franz and Paolo are non-starters, of course. Mm-hmm. You don't need to give up any of the players that you have any equity. And that's like, look, you have the matching salaries of Gary Harris is there, Jonathan Isaac is there. You don't even need to trade Markelle Fultz as part of that deal if you don't want to.
What do you think about the Magic sending Wendell Carter Jr. and Franz Wagner and another first rounder to the Bulls for Vucevic? Do you think that would be a good trade? Not great.
So I think it's Orlando. What about Alex Caruso? I know you said he fits anywhere. I know I saw a lot of people where Philly's been a big one. Denver's been a big one. I don't even know, given Christian Brown's uneven start to the season, I don't know if the Nuggets want to give up the wing for a small guard who's afraid to shoot. And I also don't know if the Bulls do that. And you just don't have first round equity to trade. Are there any other teams where it's like, if he goes there, that's kind of a complete game changer?
Well, Milwaukee needs him because now, he's not going to guard the same guys Crowder is, but you just lost Crowder.
Marjon and Connaughton in seconds. Is that enough?
No, I don't think it is. I don't think the Bucks can't really get anybody. That's what's so scary about them when we get to them at some point. They have there are no rounds in the chamber for Milwaukee, really, unless you trade Marjon and I don't know, what are you getting for him? He might just be more valuable to keep and actually play and hope he works out. We should move on to the Cavs though here. Darius Garland not making any threes, 28.6% from deep, which is kind of wild because he was 41 or 44% catch and shoot last year from deep, which is excellent. He's always been a good pull-up three-point shooter, very dangerous in the pick and roll. I flag this just because, I think it's always dangerous to have two smallish guards in your backcourt, but that's mostly a defensive issue, but the Cavs are more than equipped with a bunch of erasers behind those two to kind of mitigate any problems you're going to have there. It's not Lillard and McCollum in Portland. That's the comparison I always draw. There's just more defense behind them, but something is a little different about Cleveland if both of those guys, meaning Mitchell and Garland, are not massive threats off the ball. I'll just say now, this is a piece for me because I think Garland is awesome and he's gonna make his threes, but like under 30% to start the year through his first like 10-ish games is definitely a concern so far. And it's part of the reason the Cavs are sub 500 still as we're talking, but I'm not worried about the Cavs long term. I think they're still going to win 50 games and I think Garland will sort it out, but it does just sort of expose like there are ways for things to look bad offensively for Cleveland, and one of the two guards not being able to hit an outside shot is definitely one of those.
Yeah, 26.3% on wide open threes is just not going to hold for him. That's a caps lock piece for me.
And this incredible Jedi defense against him.
I feel like if we fast forward to, I don't know, a month from now, that the Cavs exponentially, that the conversation around them is a lot different. They had so many absences at the beginning of the year, and I don't know how many, like some of the injuries could still be hampering like Garland a little bit. This team, I still believe that they're a force. I know I was on a radio show and they were kind of trolling me and they're like, which team do you think could kind of come out of nowhere? And I was like, I don't know if I don't think it would be out of nowhere. I think the Cavs are just going to be ridiculously good.
Yeah. They're the easiest pick for like whose slow start is, one and that you should not worry about.
It helps that so if Garland's going to progress to his normal, the fact that, okay, Isaac Okoro shooting 40% from three this year on 2.5 attempts. I want to make it clear, I have not gone through 6 men of the year voting, but like the stuff that Karis LeVert has done for you this year, Max Strus is shooting about 35% from three on the volume. That's okay. And he's doing other stuff as well, where it's like, oh, if he's going to, the passing has been really good for him, or some of the screen setting for him has been really good. I'm just not worried about this team in any facet of it. No. I think actually the biggest, and it's not, I want to be clear, it's not where the peace or panic. It just, to the question still just comes down to me of, I know Cavs fans don't like this. It's the dual big stuff still makes me uneasy to where if you want to ever optimize Evan Mobley offensively, I'm just curious if this is going to be the way to do it. I think there's a real chance you can, if you have, once Garland starts hitting his threes, there's just going to be lineups where, there are 3 above average shooters with them. That'll be fine. But for the space that Evan Mobley needs to attack and occupy, it's just something I'm continuing to watch.
Yeah, I fair to say, this is how I feel, that as high as we are on Cleveland as a regular season team, and as much as we believe they're going to win tons of games this year and have great, underlying metrics and stuff, might be the best defense in the league again. They're very much in, okay, you're going to have to show me as a playoff team, because they have like the spacing concerns you're raising, the dual big stuff, the way the Knicks just clearly like kind of solved them, last year, and the 2 small guard thing. There's a bunch of like issues that if any one of those were present, we would have questions about a team's playoff viability. And there are several for Cleveland. So it's just, they're definitely going to have to win a series or 2 before I stop kind of just having like a little bit of a reservation about Cleveland as they're going to be a conference finalist at some point, right? Like, I think just their specific issues are ones that we've seen hamper playoff teams over and over again. This is a quick one for the Detroit Pistons. I don't know if you're aware of this. Jaden Ivey, after the All-Star break last year, 19.3 points, 7.1 assists, 3.7 boards. His usage rate was 28.7%, which was up from pre-All-Star break, and his true shooting percentage, while not great, was still higher in that larger role. Why is he not playing, Dan? He, I get Marcus Sasser has been surprisingly good making shots. I get Cade Cunningham is back. I get that the Detroit Pistons cannot quit Killian Hayes. But Jaden Ivey is playing, I want to be correct, 31.1 minutes per game last year. And again, that went up down the stretch of the season. Started 73 of the 74 games he played. He's played 8 games this year. He had an illness. He's at 19.6 minutes per game. And that's with all of his rate stats way up and all of his per minute stats way up. So as a team in the position the Pistons are, why aren't we just giving Jaden Ivey all he can eat? And why are we prioritizing guys that have less, that mean less to the version of the Pistons that someday might be great, right? Because if the Pistons are going to be awesome, Ivey's going to have to be a part of that. And if he just isn't going to be good, then whatever, then fine. But the fact that he's playing under 20 minutes a game in his second year after getting a lot of opportunities last year and improving, I just like, I don't know, man.
With so many injuries to guards,
I just
right
I don't understand it. It's frustrating to me because like he's a flawed player. I think defensively he's got a long way to go, and for sure, like if you're gonna put the ball in one prospect's hands on the Pistons, it's Cunningham. He's just better, but there's room for Ivey. I mean, we don't need Killian Hayes minutes anymore. I don't. I know what I need to know. I know his ceiling is not what Jaden Ivey's is, and Sasser, he might be a great rotation player. I think if you think there's a chance that Ivey is going to be a quality starter or an all-star, which should, that's part of the expectation drafting him where they drafted him. Like you got to play him.
You need the information because it's just, you have this draft equity invested in not only him, but looking at Cade, looking at our star Thompson, looking at Jalen Duren. It's okay. Do those four fit perfectly together? Absolutely not. But we also just haven't seen that to see, okay, well, what does this look like in part? Yeah. We've seen three of those guys play together a bunch, but we haven't seen, I don't know if I've seen any minutes with all four of them on the court together. And like, those have been they've played 14 possessions together this season. So I'm pretty confident in saying I must have missed all 14 of those possessions. Their net ratings of plus 24.8 in those. You need to get that information. And I would say, I think you could select elements for Peace or Panic of the Pistons where, I mean, Cade's efficiency after off to a hot start. It's brutal. But then you go back and you watch and it's, there's 8 of 5 players on the court are all collapsing somehow on Cade Cunningham on the drives because the Pistons don't know how to punish it. So I can't panic about Cade in the long run. Asar Thompson's been really good. He was at one point, it changed now, but did you notice that for like the first 10 games of the season, 4 of the 5 stocks leaders were all rookies? It was Chet, Wemby, Asar, and who was the other one? I forgot. Or 3 of the top 4. It was those 3. So Asar has been great for them. But I think, I don't want to turn this into a macro issue. I still remain higher. I don't care about the efficiency numbers. Put him in a better offensive ecosystem. And I guarantee you that this is someone who can be a star, a caps lock star. But I'm looking at the Pistons. And if we were to go Peace or Panic on their outlook, is it a panic? I know there has to be patience here. You signed Monty Williams to this long-term deal. You're still trying to get information on a lot of these guys. You've gotten away from some of the more damaging lineups of last year. What is the process here? What is the identity driving this team right now?
Yeah, it's weird because I'm really high on several other, like Thompson, I think I don't know what he's going to be other than on a lot of all defensive teams for sure. I just like fitting around him is tricky so far because I think he's shooting in the teens from 3. I think it's like 14 or 15% or something, which is just, you can only be, I guess you could be Tony Allen or whatever, like a more athletic Tony Allen, or you could be Andre Robertson or something like that. And just like, matter still, but there's such a ceiling if you just can't make a 3 at all.
Yeah. And it's 39% on drives. He's been a little bit better as a passer out of those situations than I thought, but and Duren, of course, we all love Duren. And it's just like, even the veteran pieces who haven't played, it's like, and that's the other thing with Jaden Ivey. It's like, if Monte Morris had been healthy to start the year, do you maybe understand? Okay, they decided to go, but it's like Alec Burks has been banged up. Joe Harris is banged up. We know Marcus Sasser's playing well. I honestly, and we were pretty bullish on the Pistons future when we did some offseason things, to the point that a couple of Pistons people had said something to me like, we're just not and I'm starting to just kind of understand. It feels like there's a lack of direction and coherence here, even though so much of what's in place is intriguing.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's just that it doesn't, I don't know. It's harder to be really optimistic about them as a rebuilder, which is weird. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we'll get a sense of.
They have more losses than the Wizards as we record this. That's a problem. I know they played one more game, but still, that's a problem.
Yeah. That's not a conversation you want to be in. Okay, let's do the Indiana Pacers real quick here. I don't know. So I think we're both kind of panicking on the Pistons one. And we will not be panicking here. The Pacers transition offense is just okay, which is flies wildly in the face of my expectations because it was by far the best in terms of points added per transition possession last year. And it's nowhere close to that. It's like mid-pack using cleaning the glasses numbers. They're also running less frequently. I'm more as a raw number, but less in terms of how often the league is running. Their points per play in transition is like mid-pack after being second last year. The good news is because Tyrese Halliburton is like able to manipulate space and time, their half court offense is the best in the league. So not a huge problem. And probably if you want to be good at one or the other, you much prefer to be good in the half court because that's what matters in the playoffs and stuff like that. But like we got Obi Toppin, we got Bruce Brown, we got Tyrese Halliburton throwing outlets. What's going on? Why aren't we averaging? I mean, they're scoring a ton, but I cannot believe that the transition offense is like middle of the road in terms of its production. It still looks cool a lot of the time because they, when they really do get out and run, it's great. I love it. I just am stunned that the Pacers have not run as much, and I'm not going to panic about it. I will spoil that right here.
I don't know how you would panic about it. It's kind of like, well, Buddy Hield will probably eventually shoot a higher clip on his transition threes. Aside from that, they're not even turning the ball over that much in transition relative to the league average, I don't think. So that's got to be something that's a good harbinger. I'm just surprised you focused on that, where we expect them to be so good. The fact that they're the 14th most efficient team in transition is sort of a problem. I think it's a bigger development for their half court stuff, where a lot of it is just, I don't know who is, I know it's a lot of like the cameras, but like, how do you separate between when they run so fast after makes? Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes the line between transition and half court becomes a little bit blurred as well. And by the way, I think part of the transition stuff is trying to sort of figure out a little bit of the new pieces in there where it's, Obi has almost been better for them in the half court with his constant motion than he's been better for them in transition. And also teams are they're probably more cognizant of what the Pacers are trying to do, offenses and steals. And so they're going to like make sure that they're back, that they're matching up. And I'm assuming that would be sort of a driving force there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you come into a game this season, the first item on the opposing scouting report is like, get back. Probably. So make sure you're not allowing runouts. So
they were also, and when you break down the percentages, it's not really that big, but they were 11th in forcing opponent turnovers last year compared to 23rd this year. And so the opportunities in transition might not be as clean. Like you're going to get cleaner looks in transition off of turnovers, most likely than missed shots.
Yes, that is totally fair. We are not panicking there. All right, I'm going to continue just with a bunch of weird niche stats because it's so early in the year. Most of these things are just that this is what jumps out at me. There are over 100 players averaging.
Are you going to tell us what team that you're going to take us to?
Maybe. Miami Heat. Thank you, Miami Heat. There are over 100 players. It might be quite a bit over by now. Averaging at least 29 minutes a game. There's one with a lower usage rate than Kyle Lowry, and that's Mitchell Robinson, which is hilarious because he just gets offensive rebounds and kicks it out, and that's basically what he does all game. Lowry's never been a high usage guy; just has historically always been kind of like contributes on the margins and figures out when to shoot, and then he'll go on a flurry of scoring. This is like 10 years ago, Kyle Lowry. But for a Heat team that we've made so much of, you lost Gabe Vincent, you lost Max Strus. So now we're going to skew towards offense, and we're going to play Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson together a lot. I just like the usage thing. I want to get the actual number here. I'm going to pull up the stat head numbers. Just be like, it's hard to fathom. It is under, sorry. It was like 11% the other day, and I think it actually went lower. But anyway, I don't know how much of a problem this is for the Heat because they've actually exceeded my expectations this year. I think we both give them Fs for the offseason, mostly because they
Yeah,
thought
it was touch and go for them for a while with Jimmy, but then it's just you look a week later and it's they've rattled off X amount of victories. They're just hovering around 500. They're not
like
even
7-4. I think coming into tonight. I don't have the games on tonight. They've been fine, but all right, 11.3% usage rate for Kyle Lowry, which is just like he's playing just under 30 minutes a game and has actually been like a positive defensively according to his defensive box plus minus. But like, I don't know, you lose key personnel and Lowry's actually been relatively healthy for him this year and he's just not doing anything. I think the reason I flagged it is because I think we both felt like the Heat just they're just short on guys coming into this year, and they were going to have to manufacture the next Caleb Martin, and they were going to have to find the next Duncan Robinson because they just needed bodies in the rotation. They're going to play Kevin Love a lot. That's going to hurt the defense. The offense should be better. I think the Lowry thing, I guess I get it. Like he's 37. How much do you want from him at this age? The fact that he's been able to play, as much as he has is kind of a win based on his history of the last couple of years. But like, if you're the Heat, you kind of need Kyle Lowry to be pretty good. And he's just like not contributing. He's not doing anything out there. So I flagged that as an issue. I think it ties into some of the bigger reasons to panic about the Heat. But again, like the bottom line so far has been okay. They're winning more than they're losing. So I don't know how much that bothers you if you have another Heat concern to think about.
I think it would just be they could be so banged up at points where Jimmy wasn't healthy to start the season, but now he looks fine. So I guess it's just it has to be peace with them. And I think the big reason for me when you're talking about Kyle Lowry, his usage not being high is one, he's shooting good enough from three this year, which is fine, 43% or whatever. And two, Bam Adebayo just continues to level up on the offensive end to where Jimmy Butler's still your best offensive player, but like Bam Adebayo does a whole bunch more stuff now. The self-sufficiency part of his game is a lot better, a lot more expansive. And it's so, because when you look at the Heat on paper and when you watch some of their games, it looks like we should be panicking about something. But
we panicked all offseason, or at least I did.
And then it's just, I don't think they have enough to win a title. Like, I think you're going to run out of steam with this group. I know Caleb Martin's only played in one game, and Tyler Hero's injured right now, but it's like you still need another higher end player. But that's not the cliche talking point. When you're looking at this team, it's okay, well, maybe there's something going on in Miami and this team is able to be greater than the sum of its parts when you're looking at them sort of on paper this year. And look, they've done it again. We said that they were going to need these guys to sort of step up and fill some minutes. And so you have Hayward Highsmith coming in this year. And you have Jaime Jaquez, who's played a good amount as a rookie. He's played in every single one of their games, I think, except for one. And he's given you really good minutes, even though he's not hitting his threes. And so this is a team, I think, look, the thing I might panic about most is like, are they going to be able to trust like some of these guys once you get to the playoffs, or how many of these guys are you still going to be reliant upon when you get to the playoffs? And Jimmy Butler are going to continue to hit 50% of his threes all season, because the 3-point shooting for this team, no matter what the metrics are going to say, can get pretty iffy, where it was for a lot of last year. It was kind of Tyler Hero and even Caleb Martin a little bit just carrying their percentage from three. And so, yes, you're hitting 37% this year, and the Heat, as always, like they're going to have one of the league's better shot profiles, but they're also bottom 10-ish in 3-point attempt rate. And so that's just not a huge part of their game. Even forget about, we say they need another off the dribble creator, and this would be caked into your Lowry concern, but they might need more 3-point volume as well. So there's just all these different moving parts in the air, but you watch them, you see the stretch where they're rattling off 7 victories in a row. And we're recording this before they were playing the Nets, I think, on Thursday, and we weren't watching. So if they win, it'll be 8. I guess they're riding the ship. So I'm just peace. You have to default to peace with the Heat. They've earned that benefit of the doubt. That's where I'm at.
Because if they sneak into the play-in, they just make the finals. So it's hard to get too worked up. Okay, this is a big one. We could go in 1,000 directions for the Milwaukee Bucks. Do you want to talk about the defense? Do you want to talk about Giannis's free throw shooting? I guess since I'm like kind of leading the thought here, I know the defense was such an issue so early that we've already done like a couple of ping pongs back and forth between like, oh, this is a systemic issue, and then, oh, it's early, and oh, it's Dame's fault, and then, they're actually better on defense with Dame on the floor so far. So like, yeah, he's a bad defender, but it's not just him. Adrian Griffin doesn't know what he's doing. Oh no, he listened to the team and now he does. He's playing Brook Lopez and drop. Like, it's clearly something's up with the defense, or several somethings are up with the defense, and it's not just the things we go to as like, oh, opponents are making 50% of their threes or whatever. Like, I think there's something really. I have a bad feeling about the Bucks this year, and I did not have a bad feeling at all coming into the season. And I think it's twofold for me. One is I think we're just seeing how much Drew Holiday matters. One, and two, it's the Giannis piece of it. All his numbers are still awesome. Like, he's been super productive. He's, his free throwing is like, basically where it was last year, but which is to say still a huge problem. 3-point shooting is even worse. But I started having the thought the other day of like, doesn't it make sense that Giannis is one of those guys that's just not going to age well? Just because it's not like his game was skill-based necessarily. Like, he was just overwhelmingly athletic and could get to the hoop whenever he wanted. And as he ages, that's just going to get harder. And all those other peripheral skills that he never really developed are not going to be there to like prolong his prime. So I'm raising a lot of like major issues for the Bucks. Maybe we start with the defense. Do you have concerns that this defense is just not going to get where it needs to?
I have concerns, but did you look when you were doing this? Like, did you look at the numbers, what they've been since Brook Lopez started dropping more frequently again?
It's like it fixed everything, right?
Right. They've been the best rim protecting team in the league since then. They are 12th overall in points allowed per possession during this stretch. The half court, where they were getting beat a lot and still are at points from the point of attack, they're now 11th in half court defense. Even there, I would say the bigger concern for me, and they've settled down here from an efficiency perspective, was they were just getting torched in transition, and they still might be allowing it too frequently because it's so easy to get behind their guards off. Forget about makes, misses, turnovers, whatever. So I look at the personnel, and it's certainly fragile. And now the thing we didn't mention in the news is like Jay Crowder's missing a bunch of time. And so like that throws another curveball into the element. But I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about the Bucks. Like, this won't fix the defense, but let's get Chris Middleton to a point where he's playing more minutes per game. Damian Lillard, we've already kind of seen what he does, the havoc he creates off the dribble in the half court, and he's not even hitting his threes at his normal clip just yet. The Giannis stuff is interesting because I had this discussion. I'm going to have to stop. I'm going to have to throw it to you as soon as my voice is cracking again, like a little child. I had this discussion with Ty Windish before the season that I'm very curious to see how Giannis ages, but is that like an immediate concern for you? Because every time, from what I've seen from him this season, I'm not concerned about what Giannis is going to be for the rest of this year. I think if you want to point out, what did you say he was shooting from the free throw line? I don't even know.
It's in the 60s again. I have it right here.
It's a piece.
63%.
It's a bold text, italics, caps lock piece for me across the board.
Ooh, see,
you want to know why?
Why is that?
Because Marjon Beauchamp is going to be a 2-time champ, or no, he's going to be a multi-time champ.
We both love that. You mentioned the transition stuff. Just to put a finer point on it, the Bucks are dead last in opponent transition frequency, meaning teams run on them more than any other team. And what's crazy is you don't run off the Bucks on steals. They're fourth in suppressing opponent transition chances off of steals. Live rebounds, run all you want. Bucks opponents, again, dead last in how often teams run off live rebounds, which is, I would be curious to sort that into the pre and post. Brook Lopez should be in a drop.
I did. They're still dead last in frequency.
So what's going on?
They're not like a team that's really getting after it on the offensive glass. So there've been a few things I already said about it's just easy to get behind the guards on their team. Is
that a Dame thing, do you think? Because
it's a Dame thing, it's a Malik Beasley thing.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna be frank, and this isn't a guard. At times it's been a Giannis thing because like when he puts up those shots outside the restricted area, whether it's I would be interested to see like what are opponents running off of Giannis threes. He's not back in time. When he's putting up like kind of mid-range shots, it's almost like he needs to, and I guess it makes sense because if you're dunking or laying up, you know the outcome of the shot, one, sooner, and two, it's more likely to go in. So they're not going to have the opportunity to run. And so it's been, I don't want to say an everyone problem, but that's what I've noticed.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe Bucks fans have noticed something a little bit differently or noticed more of it, but that's not something that has been, remedied. And so I think, look, I don't know what the answer is or what they could do to, aside from it's not even getting healthier for them because they're sort of just running out of different personnel options. That's the part of their defense, though, that I could see, it's not really going to normalize. I would love to see them. I don't know if you've seen any of Chris Livingston this season, but like that's someone that they can maybe test out a little bit in some more run here. Or oh my God, my voice is cracking so hard right now. But again, like that's like the closest thing to, excuse me, it wasn't even Andre Jackson Jr. is the name I'm thinking of. This is just like, he's a very smart and cerebral player, and he knows how to he's just better at getting back than a lot of the other guys that they're playing right now is really where I'm at with Milwaukee. But that's if we're at that point with Andre Jackson, that would be the part of their defense though that I'm most concerned about.
Yeah, I think I'm just broadly closer to panic for them because it's not quite to the same extent as maybe 2 years ago when our refrain was like, I got no notes on the Bucks. I have no questions about them. They're going to win the title. They're great. And then of course they got bounced in the first round. So we're wrong there. But this team just seems more vulnerable. They're thinner. They're older. The thing about Middleton, once he's right, we'll be good. It's like, well, but he's not yet. And I'm not super confident that Middleton's going to be the guy they need him to be. I don't know. I'm being sort of irrationally panicky about the Bucks because it's so jarring to me that now they were once the team that I was just like, yeah, just wake me up in April. They're going to be awesome. And now things feel less stable to me. And so I'm worried.
I think that's a fair macro concern, but they're 7-4. Damian Lillard hasn't been hitting threes, and they haven't had the cleanest bill of health, and it took them not so long, but their defense was so bad for part of the season. It's just the ceiling of this team still feels incredibly high, even if a few things need to break right. How would you feel about them if they reacquire Javon Carter at the trade deadline?
Way better, way better. From your mouth to God's ears. Okay, bad news if your voice is going out because we have the Knicks as our next team, and it's the shooting, the 2-point shooting at the rim shooting. It's been horrible. They're the least accurate team in the league at the rim, 54.4%, which would be the worst in franchise history as far as cleaning the glass is concerned, which goes back to 03-04. So the Knicks are making nothing at close range. Jalen Brunson's floater has been offline. They've been better lately. Julius Randle has started to make some shots after, I forget what the number was. Maybe you came across it, but he was in the 20%.
Yeah, he was bad.
It was just at the rim, he was in the third, just inexplicably bad shooting. Now, the Knicks were not a great effective field goal percentage team last year. They succeeded on offense. They were the number 2 offense because they got every offensive rebound. Fred Katz had great research on this. They always kicked out offensive boards and got open threes. And so that is how they succeeded. They took care of the ball, all that stuff. So, they're looking at it now, 26th in effective field goal percentage in the league. They were 20th last year. So it's it's not a death knell if your effective field goal percentage is low, but this is low, especially at the rim. I'm sure you've watched more Knicks than I have. How I know we're doing peace or panic, but is there any part of you that wants to panic about this, or is it just, they'll make shots eventually?
I'd probably lean towards peace on this, just because I think you can say the bigger concern, if you want to panic, is to say that the offense does not really have a lot more variance than it does last year. Dante DiVincenzo's brought some of it, and the RJ Barrett, when he's been healthy or not having migraines, he's been really good for them. But the defenses are still really they can pack the paint against them. And I think that's made life really difficult when you're looking at Jalen Brunson's finishing inside the arc. He's had to be a little bit more reliant on the perimeter game on his threes. And the Knicks are shooting well enough from three, and I think they're 10th in 3-point attempt rate. They're dead last in average possession time on the offensive end. And so it's they're not dead last in transition frequency, but this is not an offense that is going to operate at a super quick pace. They're going to kind of more, when Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle are operating, they're going to meticulously kind of pick their spots. And to some extent, that's fine. But I would like to see there be more urgency caked in. And you see it more when it's, the RJ Barrett plus bench units. I'd be mostly a piece here. If it's more of a, okay, if you're measuring it against last year when they were second in points scored per possession, you could go as a panic. But I mean, as we're recording this, like to be 12th in points scored per possession while being 26th in effective field goal percentage, it's unsustainable. But it means, okay, where there's room to grow somewhere. And the defense has been so good that I think it offsets a lot of it. But the offense, I'll say they're methodical, deliberate, the half court offense outside of them getting offensive rebounds, which they are still, by the way, more than capable of doing. It's, that would be do I have confidence that this team as currently constructed can be a much better half court offense? No. And that would be where the panic sets in a little bit, because they are 25th in half court offense right now. And I think that comes up organically as Jalen Brunson continues to get better and as RJ Barrett's a little bit more available, and we continue to get into Julius Randle, even if he's not all NBA, Julius Randle getting a little bit better. But outside of the offensive rebounding element, that's where you needed your offense to improve, and it has not.
Yeah. Another offensive, these happen to be back-to-back alphabetically, but the Orlando Magic, do you want to guess what their highest ranking in offensive rating has been over the last 4 years? Just,
over the last 4 years, their highest, I'm going to say 18th.
26th. Not good. They're 27th this year. And like the defense, again, last year they flirted with top 10. I think they finished 11th. Now they're currently 4th in defensive efficiency. I kind of think the defense is real. They force a ton of turnovers. Jalen Suggs is a monster. Every second that Jonathan Isaac is able to stay on the floor with Jalen Suggs is just like, that's tough. Isaac can still move, can still block shots. I think when I did the numbers the other day, he's obviously not playing 36 minutes, but Isaac is averaging like 3.9 blocks and 2.6 steals or something absurd like that for 36 minutes. So he's just like wreaking havoc in the high teens or mid-teens minute totals he plays. But when you have Fultz, when you have Suggs, I think Anthony Black has massive defensive potential, but he's a rookie. I think just Wagner and Banchero because of their size. This defense is going to be good. The offense, though, like I don't know how it gets better without personnel changes. So I guess, so I'm panicking about the offense, even though it is mostly young guards and like Banchero's in his second year, Wagner's in his third. And so the front court should get better too. But like, we're now going on 4 years of 26th or worse. That's not all on this roster, but there is carryover from last year when they were 26th and some from the year before when they were dead last. So I'm trying to see a way towards, the defense being, I think, legit. What do you do to make this offense function? Because it just isn't right now. And so for me, it's a panic because I do think there's pretty significant potential, at least defensively. And I like a lot of the pieces offensively, but it's just the results aren't there. So, and it's gone on long enough to where I'm not comfortable just talking about like shot variance and whatever. Like it doesn't feel like noise to me. So I'm pretty panicky over the Magic's offense.
Yeah, and look, I think you should be. And if you're looking to address it in-house, aside from kind of banking on the development of players, which is, by the way, is fair when you look at who is on their roster, where you could talk yourself into, okay, Anthony Black's been better than I expected this year. So you could talk yourself into certain things, but I think what you could do is you already mentioned what they're doing on defense by forcing the turnovers, run more off of those. They're like 22nd in the frequency of transition in which they run after forcing turnovers. When you're forcing turnovers that much, that's not okay. And then they're 25th in average possession time after forcing a turnover. This is not an offense that is built to slow down, even if you look at their players and they're not necessarily built to operate super fast. And you kind of look at the way that their offense gets run in the half court, where it's Franz Wagner or Paolo Banchero, when they have to, attack on these drives and they're running into all these different bodies. Yeah, you can generate some wide open 3-point looks, but guess what? Teams don't give a shit about those. You're shooting 36.4% on wide open threes this year, and that's bottom 7 in the league. Like a average mark on wide open threes, I think, is around like 39% or whatever it is. Go ahead.
And they don't shoot them. They don't shoot threes. So their attempt frequency from three is 26th in the league this year. They take just under 32% of their shots from deep. Last year, they were 24th in attempt frequency. They get to the rim a ton, which like makes sense because you just
They're
said
not, they're not clean
Wagner
looks.
attacking the basket.
They're just not clean looks at the rim, though. And
No,
it's, I mean, it's a
they're not
testament.
making their shots at the rim. They're
Yeah, there we go.
they're not making it. So, but like that part of the process is good. But I think it's all tied to what you said. You have your forwards essentially initiating the offense, and if they do collapse the defense, and it is collapsed because why are you don't care about Jalen Suggs or Markelle Fultz or even Cole Anthony all that much outside? Like those kickouts are going to guys who either are not shooting them or just like have maybe been told like, oh, let's drive and kick again and try to get it to it's just like the structure of this team for a long time. I mean, a long time, for a couple years to me has just not made sense, because if you're going to run the offense through your awesome forward combo, which that like good idea, we like that, your guards have got to be able to shoot. Like, and they don't even have to be able to do much. Like, you don't need anything else from them. You don't need them to run pick and rolls or generate offense. Just make open shots and scare the defense. And they just don't have those guys.
Yeah, they need to look, if they want to let it marinate, that's fine. There doesn't have to be like intense urgency here, but they're a team where if Zach LaVine becomes available, if Buddy Hield's available, which I don't know why the Pacers would be getting rid of Buddy Hield right now. Like, you need to be in on that if you have aspirations this season.
Yeah, agree. That takes us to the Philadelphia 76ers. And like, I am so excited about the Sixers. I was watching them, even though they lost the game against Boston, where it's just like, oh, I've circled all the way back now, Dan. Remember how I said we need to come up with a player category for guys that just fit anywhere? I thought of this when watching DeAnthony Melton, because I just was thinking like, who wouldn't want this guy? Memphis, what are we doing? what in a role player does Melton not give you? Like, answer nothing. He's never going to be a star, but I would feel 100% comfortable with him on the floor in the last 2 minutes of a finals game. Like, he's in the KCP. Danny Green might be like the original guy for this role for me. Like, just Spurs Danny Green is like, give me him. I want him on my team. I don't care who he plays over. He's my starting shooting guard. So I just got super excited about the Sixers, and the nit I was going to pick is that they're giving up like too many layups, basically, which is just like, who cares? They're 24th in opponent rim attempt frequency, but like, whatever. So I don't really have a piece or panic for the Sixers other than like, well, do something stupid with your trade assets now and mess this up, and just, Zach LaVine probably isn't the answer, I guess. That's it. I'm punting on a piece or panic for the Sixers because I just don't really have any major concerns for them.
Here's a piece or panic. Do you think that they will actually start playing Jaden Springer over Marcus Morris and Patrick Beverley?
God, I love Jaden Springer. Again, in that Celtics game, he's just like steal, dunk, tip
Nick
in.
Nurse said something after, basically along the lines of, we need to figure out a way to get him more minutes.
Yeah, you do.
Panic. Will they figure out a way to get Jaden Springer more minutes?
I'm panicking right now because he should play a lot. He should play a lot. Even preseason, I don't know how many different things I wrote or said about Jaden Springer. And then I came, looked going into last night's game, and he's just not playing at all. And every time he gets in the game, he might be one of those guys. He's another Gabe Vincent where I only ever see his good moments somehow, because it's inexplicable to me. So I'm panicking if you're not playing more Jaden Springer.
I think they're going to wind up out of necessity, especially with Kelly Oubre Jr. out for a little bit. I'd be a little bit surprised if they wind up not playing him more over the next couple weeks. I'm going to say peace there. I think Jaden Springer gets more minutes. Have you been concerned at all? You said they're giving up too many layups. They're like one of the worst finishing teams at the rim too this season. Is that a piece or panic when you look at, do they have enough? Look, the real piece or panic to me would actually be, are they going to be able to get a second creator for the bench? Because the second creator for the bench is a big part of, I think, what is going to ail them. And like, you've had the Maxey, no Embiid minutes, I think, have been great this year. That's what everyone was in fanfare, but you need just another kind of ball handler type on this team. And that's the piece or panic is, can you figure out a way? Because he's not on the roster. I think we all agree about that. Can you figure out a way to acquire one without acquiring the wrong one? Because Zach LaVine is very much we're committing to this pot, which is why you don't like it. And Alex Caruso is also not that guy, even though he'd be a great fit in Philly. You imagine Alex Caruso and DeAnthony Melton on the same team? My God.
Oh, man. And then you go get Anunoby this offseason.
Then you just have Jaden Springer there.
Yeah. You're not scoring on this team ever. The rim stuff is interesting on offense. I guess like I wouldn't be concerned about that. One, because the Sixers are always going to generate a ton of free throws. And so that's going to offset some of the lack of rim. The other thing is like, I think part of the value of rim pressure is that you're bringing defenders away from perimeter shooters. And so those guys are getting free runs at offensive boards and or open shots if the ball gets kicked out. And as long as you have Embiid, you're going to attract defenders into the lane. So whether they're finishing or not, I think you're still getting most of the benefit of the same types of benefits you'd get if you were like the Thunder and just relentlessly were attacking the basket all the time. You kind of have the same effect on the defense just by Embiid like existing and being on the court somewhere. Let's see. We got the Raptors next. Okay. This is going to seem like a cop out, but like, should we panic that all of the shit that has gone badly for them this year, other than Scottie Barnes being good again, was foreseeable? And that like the half court offense was bad last year, sucks worse this year because you have Dennis Schroeder for Fred VanVleet. The turnovers are way up because you just don't have enough like capable ball handlers. You are not getting to the line nearly as often again, because like the whole, so I don't know if this is the most common criticism of Nick Nurse, but it seemed like last year it was like a lot of matchup hunting, a lot of grinded out, a lot of Pascal Siakam, like 8 dribble possessions where he turns one shoulder than the other. There was no flow. The half court offense was bad, like across the board, and it's just worse. And I think that's because you got an inferior model in at point guard, and all of the same tendencies that your best players had are still there. Siakam's been a lot worse this year than last. So I think like, if this is easy for me, I'm panicking because it just suggests to me that the Raptors, like, this is more than the pick a direction thing we've harped on forever. It's just like, how did you not anticipate exactly this fate? You know, like this is where all of the signs, all of the moves and non-moves made over the last couple of years were pointing towards, and now we're just here. And so it gives me no confidence that the Raptors are going to navigate their way out of this. It's great that Scottie Barnes looks good now. But that's just like, as an organization, it just feels like this is a total panic situation because they've messed up roster construction, free agency, trades. The Poeltl trade, I think, is still a mistake. And I'm panicking. I'm panicking across the board.
That's the thing I keep coming back to is when you're framing it as, is it Pascal Siakam or Scottie Barnes? I honestly feel like is it Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes, or is it Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl? And you have to like those. My point is those three. That was probably a terrible way to phrase it, but those three can't be together. And the Raptors are getting hammered with them on the court this year when those three play together. I would like to see them start Gary Trent Jr. when he's healthy, just to see if that opens things up a little bit more, because you don't have the have 2 shooters on the court at all times when those 3 are there. And I know Scottie Barnes improved his shooting this year, but Pascal Siakam's been a little bit off. He is up to, I want to make this clear after some good performances, he's up to 37.8% shooting on drives. There's just the space is not there.
Numbers.
Yeah, for all these guys to operate. And so I think it's a panic because I don't trust themselves to navigate out of this, because it feels like they might lean further into it. It's just because why would you trade? I actually think Scottie Barnes and Pascal Siakam can work together. It's just going to take a different look at center. That's a hard look at center to find, though. And you just invested in Jakob Poeltl. And why would you trade Pascal Siakam right now? Because the value you're going to get for him months away from free agency, to where teams don't even get a training camp with him, what is the value they're going to give up?
Yeah. I think, Toronto's done this time and again. They just, Trent, opted in. I think that was a surprise, but the VanVleet thing, they had many opportunities to trade him. Didn't they even do this with like going back to Kyle Lowry, where they just there were always times to move guys and they waited and the value went down. And so that is where we are with, and now it's complicated because the extension, you can't extend in Anunoby. So, he's going to get the free agency one way or the other, but that's another reason to try to get maybe what you can for him if you don't think you can re-sign him. And Siakam is kind of a similar boat, but like just waiting and hoping that this personnel group is going to figure it out when the pieces just don't quite work it's just a mistake. I don't see the way forward with this group. So
I will say we're probably talking, and I don't know who it would have cost them, but we're probably talking this team about in a much different vein if they were actually in on the Damian Lillard sweepstakes. Because even when he's not making shots, as he's gone through these cold spurts in Milwaukee, you just see the impact on what he opens up inside the arc for everybody. Could you imagine him next to, I'm assuming they could have, based off what the package ended up being, I'm assuming they could have gotten him without giving up Siakam and Scottie.
You think, I mean, he would, so like, if you're talking about, can't Siakam and Scottie like can't play together and all this other stuff. It's not, I want to make it clear in case I said that. I just don't like the Poeltl Scottie Siakam look. That does not feel like a setup that can sustain. I don't like it either, but I think it's almost like, and I'm not saying you're making the point that Siakam and Scottie can't play together. I think there's like,
there's concerns for sure.
There's concerns about that. I don't think the answer is move one or the other necessarily. I think they're going to be in a position where they sort of have to do that just because of where Siakam is contractually. But I think the fix for that is like not Dennis Schroeder at point. Like it's got to be, it doesn't have to be Dame either, but it has to be somebody that is going. Like I get it, you want Barnes on the ball, or at least you definitely did before because his shooting was such a non-threat. And now maybe that's different because he's making 40% of his threes, but I think the answer, the fix would be a on-ball distributor that's going to get both of these guys involved in an offense that has some movement to it. Like that I think mitigates a lot of the your turn, my turn, pounding the ball, like isolation stuff that just has not worked. So I think it's like sort of a false choice that you see presented between, Scottie, you got to choose Scottie or Siakam has to be. If we're maximizing Siakam, we're necessarily minimizing Barnes and vice versa. Like, I don't think it has to be that way, but if the rest of the roster around them is what it is, like currently, then maybe that's just how it is. Like you can't have both of them going because you don't have the supplementary support.
A more accurate way, which it seems like we're both saying to phrase it, would be they need to pick a direction, which we said before. And that direction doesn't need to be, we need to trade Siakam. It needs to be, this roster needs to have a direction where it's, we see the vision of what they're trying to do with the personnel that's in place. And right now, there's just still too many. And again, you can point out, well, what else were they supposed to do after they lost Fred VanVleet for nothing other than get Dennis Schroeder? That's also part of the problem.
Yeah, don't lose him for nothing.
Final team, the Washington Wizards.
Washington Wizards, do we just like, okay, on the one hand, they're doing what we wanted them to do. They're being terrible. They're losing a bunch of games. They are not. I want to see how much they're playing Bilal Coulibaly before I.
Who has been, by the way, that dude's going to make an all-rookie team. I know I had him as first team all-rookie. I don't think he has the offensive volume to get it. Him and Denny Avdia, the future.
So I saw Kevin Pelton and Bobby Marks did their rookie rankings today, and neither of them had Coulibaly in the top 10. I was
so who's in the top 10? You have Wemby, Chet.
I know Marcus Sasser, and I promise both.
This is not me throwing shade. It's not a critique. It's just I'm a little bit surprised at how many people I've needed to clarify. Like when I've mentioned Chet in rookie stuff, they're like, Chet's not a rookie. And I'm just shocked that that's not more of a, I guess if you're just more of a casual watcher, you just look at the draft class rather than them not playing. Yeah. And that's how it was for Embiid and Blake Griffin and Simmons. I've been a little bit surprised at how much it's not again, I'm not even yelling at people. It's one of those things where it's, I thought it was just common knowledge that he's considered a rookie this year.
It is. The people that are confronting you with that are unfamiliar with.
They mostly haven't been nasty about it. I want to make that clear. I've been a little bit surprised at how many times I've needed to clarify it.
That's crazy. I wish we could talk about them instead of the Wizards. I don't know. Like Coulibaly, by the way, playing just under 26 minutes a game, and that's trending up. He looks like such a more finished. He was supposed to be raw, and he was almost like a 2 years away from being 2 years away guy in theory, and he's just not that. Like the defensive disruption is like off the charts. Like if he makes an all rookie team, it will mostly be on the strength of his defense, except like offensively, he's so much more developed. Like he's making threes. He looks more comfortable, more poised. I think he's the third youngest guy in this draft class too. So it's just like, he's way ahead of schedule, and a very different player than what I thought he would be in like all the best ways.
What's the peace or panic on that?
There's nothing. I was just on a tangent about Koulibaly. Because I started talking about, like, I guess it's just peace because the Wizards are doing what we thought they should do, and then I was going to panic if Koulibaly wasn't playing enough, but he kind of is. My niche stat is basically, or not niche stat, but niche peace or panic discussion topic is Jordan Poole isn't even giving them counting stats. Are we concerned about that? Because he's shooting worse, he's scoring fewer points, he's playing fewer minutes than at any point since he was like still bouncing between the G League and the Warriors several years ago. And I thought at least we were going to get a bunch of 50-point games out of Jordan Poole this year amidst all the nonsense, and we're just not.
So we have to juxtapose this against, I don't know if you saw the clip of him saying, sit the fuck down, this is my team or something in the huddle, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
That's a panic if this is Jordan Poole.
if Jordan Poole is in charge of your team, run.
But I actually don't, and maybe I just haven't watched enough Wizards. I don't think he's been hijacking the offense to like an upteenth degree. It feels he's been not great, but I don't know that he's done anything less than I expected, to where if you were expecting him to either have a breakout season or to be more of a chucker, but it's like his average touch time is down. Like he's not taking all these like super clock sappy possession looks. So I've been pleasantly surprised with that. And the Wizards in general, like, and this tends to happen with bad teams. We saw it a lot, I believe, with the process era Sixers, is that you try to play fast as a way to just decide, okay, we're going to cover up the talent deficit here. Mm-hmm. And like the Wizards, they play fast. They're sixth in average possession time. And they're going to run a lot after defensive rebounds. I don't actually mind watching them as much as others. And so it's a piece for me, because this is what, here's where I land on it. And I don't think Jordan, where I land on Jordan Poole.
You love him.
The building block here is the chaos for now. Right. It could be Bilal Coulibaly, it could be Deni Avdija, but like, so not even the building block. The direction is the chaos. You need to go through this season to reach the subsequent seasons and the more coherent looking seasons. And so it's a piece for me. And are they high comedy? Sure. Some of these guys aren't going to be, I mean, the two that we're talking about, Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, one of them is not going to be here past the trade deadline at least.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think so. It is peace because circling all the way back, like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Being bad is good, up is down. Like that is very much where we are. I'm just panicking a little bit because I was never more sure of anything than that Jordan Poole was going to be like hilariously prolific and also awful this year. Like I thought for sure he was going to average in the high 20s. Like I knew it, and it was still going to be like bad for the team somehow. And I'm very, very, very wrong about that so far. And it's kind of rattling me a little bit. So I'm panicking about that.
I think if I was going to panic about anything, it'd be nice if, Daniel Gafford could grab a defensive rebound, or this team in general could grab a defensive rebound.
Yeah, I mean, but the chaos. You just want the chaos.
What's the benefit of not grabbing defensive rebounds?
I don't know. The ball bounces around and anything can happen. That's the benefit. Yeah, no, that's by the way, that's been another aspect of Bilal Coulibaly's game where he just comes in. It's like, is honestly by position, I'm kind of just like, is he their best defensive rebounder sometimes? Like that's what I'm thinking. And so here's what I would say. This is not a piece or panic. NBA fact or fiction, Bilal Coulibaly will be this team's best player by season's end. By season's end? Nah, I can't get there. I mean, Kuzma's still like a legit NBA
player.
He's
going to be playing for like the Grizzlies.
Oh, right. Yeah, Kuzma's not there. We still love Deni Avdija though, right? I mean, he's been a lot better this year.
I love Deni Avdija.
I'm not giving up on Deni Avdija as being the best.
Okay. So, I was about to say, it's not a matter of give up. It's more pro Bilal Coulibaly.
I'm very pro Bilal Coulibaly.
He's top 10 rookies. Then if Bilal didn't make it. So can I guess? Do you have it up?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but so it's going to be hard for me to validate your guesses.
Maybe I should go. So I would have Keontae George had to be in there. Chet, Wemby. I mean, I guess Ausar Thompson, you definitely put him.
Ausar was third, I believe, on both Pelton and Marks's boards.
I mean, Jordan Hawkins was probably in there.
He was in there, I think.
I'm just trying 10 rookies who've been better than Bilal Coulibaly. I mean, this would help if I had a list of rookies up. We just need to get out of here, I think, at this point.
I got the list now. If you want me to tell you.
Okay, so Keontae George, Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama, Asar Thompson, Jordan Hawkins. I'm trying to think of other. Is Brandon Miller on there?
No. You want me to go from? I'll give you Pelton's list from 10 to 1 if you want it.
All right, hit me.
Number 10 and number 1 in your heart, Brandon Pajemski. I'm not making this up.
Was it just based off the one game?
I didn't. It's just that's all you need to know is he's number 10. Jordan Hawkins 9, Brandon Miller 8, Jaime Jaquez 7, Cason Wallace 6, Derek Lively 5, Sasser 4, Asar Thompson 3, Wemby Chet. That's
okay.
Pelton.
So honestly, after you hear, wait, Keontae George wasn't even on that.
No, he's not on either of their lists.
Wow. So I would say based off Pelton's, the only one that I would. So you had Pods, and then who was 9?
Hawkins.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, 10 is the only one I would quibble with. Like that should be Keontae George, or I would think Bilal.
Yeah, Pods had one good game and has barely played other than that, but yeah, I don't know. And then Marks is not meaningfully different. Same top 4, Holmgren, Wemby, Thompson, Sasser. And then he flip-flops Wallace and Lively at 5'6". Hawkes is still there.
Those two belong there. Yeah, I mean, Sasser, Lively, and Wallace absolutely belong. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's actually not.
George, I'm surprised because he's starting now like we thought he would and has been their best point guard.
Yeah, for sure. So that would be the only thing I quibble over. Do you want to take us out?
Sure. Thanks everybody for checking in with this one. We will I don't know what order Dan will put these up in, but we're also going to do the West for Peace or Panic. As we always mention at the top, please rate, review, subscribe, follow. All the information you need to support us, to get merch, to join our Discord is in the YouTube and podcast description. If you have done all those things, if you've bought our merch, if you've listened, subscribed, given us 5 stars everywhere, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, just let people know if you like our podcast and you have someone in your life that you think might also like our podcast, tell them. And, you know, there's a great chance they'll be able to provide content for us because we keep requesting guest of players and awesome stats for stat padding. So as always, thank you guys. We love doing this. We like that you participate. So this is a good relationship. Let's keep it going. We close as always with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.